Welcome to part 3 of the GB Rewind 2016 series for the GamesBeat Decides podcast. This is your podcast for a couple guys taking video games too seriously. This is the second half of a podcast me and Mike recorded at once. So if it sounds incoherent at the beginning, that's why, and that's why I'm doing this intro. So I wanted to say welcome. You can always get us at GamesBeat.com. Games plus podcast at VentureBeat.com is the email address. Like and subscribe, all that stuff on YouTube. 5 stars on iTunes. What else is there? You should subscribe if you haven't already on your podcatcher of choice. Other than that, I think we can hop right into it. Thank you for joining us. We'll have more throughout the rest of this week. I think we're going to end with Game of the Year very soon. Keep an eye out for that, and we'll catch you then. Okay, so we wrapped up that last topic. We're going to get into the best gaming company now. Mike, can you see the list in front of you? Do you want to add any here? Because I put a few down. I'm wondering if you...
that looks about right to me.
Yeah, I can't... I mean, there's a few maybe smaller companies that we could put on there, but I'm not...
Well, there are like companies that had like one big hit, right? But I don't know if that makes you... Like Niantic, right? Like they had a real big hit, but do we put them, for just that? Nah.
And even that one, like as much as I defend Pokemon Go and how broken it is still broken.
It is still broken, yeah.
Right.
They aren't adding a lot of content very quickly, so...
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and pick one on here, and we'll get started with the best gaming company of 2016.
I have to continue the Overwatch love. I could pretty easily point to Blizzard, right? They're kind of one of the few companies that sort of has like, especially like as far as like a developer goes, that kind of has its own brand, right? Like I think that's like we say Overwatch was like this original game, and like how its success is impressive because of that. But it like in a way it almost like got to be a Blizzard game, and that's what kind of helps it out a lot, right? Like they're the only company that could have their own launcher for that basically just works like 5 or 6 games that are on there. And nobody really minds. Like 3 of those games are probably my 3 most played games this year. Overwatch, tons of that. Still play Hearthstone just about every day. And I've been playing World of Warcraft every day since a couple months before Legion came out almost. So, yeah. And maybe I'm just like, these games just happen to speak to me, but...
well, I don't think you're alone. Like,
no, I think Hearthstone's very popular. I think Overwatch is very popular. I think World of Warcraft has, maybe, they don't release those numbers anymore, so it's hard to tell. But I think it had the reception to Legion seemed to be very positive for, a 12-year-old MMO.
Yeah, I think what you said about them being like one of the only companies that can have their own launcher and get away with it. Like, I think I have Origin on my PC. I think I have Uplay. I think I have. What's the one from Epic? I don't even know what they call it. I think I have that on here, and I never open those. They're never open. If I have to open them, I'm like, I get real bummed out because I'm like, oh god, I don't want this stupid thing there. But Battle.net I have open all the time, and I don't even know if I was necessarily like that before Overwatch. I played Hearthstone a lot in 2015. I fell off in 2016. But with Overwatch, I've had it open all the time, nonstop, and now I'm like starting to be like, okay, I'm going to play some more Diablo. I haven't played that in a while. Things like that, and I don't mind it because, yes, it's clear that they are putting so much work into their ecosystem, into their games, and and that's kind of what I want from a gaming company too. When I think about like my relationship with a company that makes games, like I don't know what that means most of the time, but with Blizzard, it's a little more clear. Like, yeah, they're making this environment where I can just go and play these excellent games at any time. And yeah, I really appreciate that.
Nintendo's interesting because it seems like they're on the cusp of like having a really big year. And they did have a big year in some ways here, right?
Yeah, they had a good 2015, and now in 2016, I think it was hard to like do that 2 years in a row, especially as they're getting ready to release something new.
Yeah, they had a real good software year in 2015 with Mario Maker and Splatoon. This year, it's just because they didn't really release any like super great games.
No.
Like a new Pokemon and whatnot. But the NES Classic Edition was awesome. That was like just one of my favorite things in the year. Just that idea, like just hope to see more of that. Them finally doing all their mobile stuff, Mitomo, the small experiment, Super Mario Run going a little bit more all out, and then just like all the Switch reveals kind of ramping up. So yeah, I think some of that stuff was really cool, but next year could be the big year for them.
Yeah, I think right now they are on the upswing. They are building buzz. They might be the most interesting company in 2016, I think, Nintendo. They're doing the stuff that is the most kind of out there in one regard and exactly what I want in another. With the, like you said, the NES Classic is very cool idea. They executed it well. And really, they did a better job than any other company that had tried to make these mini versions of their old consoles before. The HDMI output works really well. It doesn't make the game look, any of the games look blown out or terrible. They executed on that perfectly. Yeah. And then, like the Switch reveal and the build up to that has been, I mean, they've only done a little bit, but it has been really well handled by their PR staff and just kind of getting the buzz out there and then going on Jimmy Fallon. All that stuff's working for me, and I am liking it a ton. But yeah, I think what you're saying about 2017 probably being the year where all this stuff pays off, I agree with that.
Sony and Microsoft are interesting because it's like they had very similar years, right?
Yeah.
They're almost
and they kind of cancels each other out almost, I feel like.
Right? It's like, they had a couple first-party things. Most of it was third-party stuff. They both like made their... they both released like an updated version of their hardware, although Microsoft's gonna have like the more updated one next year. Mm-hmm. Sony had VR, which didn't seem to make much of an impact yet. Yep, right? No. Yeah, I mean, like the one thing that maybe sets them apart was just like one game. Uncharted 4 was definitely the best console exclusive this year.
And I mean, I liked Forza Horizon 3, but it's no Uncharted in terms of how many people like it. I mean, I like Forza Horizon 3 better, but I recognize that more. Yeah, I recognize that more people definitely see Uncharted 4 as this prestige game.
We didn't talk about that space game that everyone got upset about for Best New Game Universe. What was that?
Oh God, No Man's Sky. You're right.
I forgot the name.
Universe too. It's right in the name.
It is literally a universe. It's huge. Just billions of planets, Jeff. But so yeah, it's like but like neither Sony or Microsoft seem to have a standout years. It's kind of like all right.
I think they both had very good
plan for year 3. Go.
Yeah, they're executing on the strategy they set up in 2013 precisely, and their deviations in terms of Xbox One S, PlayStation 4 Pro, and PlayStation VR. Those are the things that I don't think got anyone excited. Like Xbox One S, I think actually got more people excited than either of the things that Sony did. And no one was actually that excited about the Xbox One S. I think people had more questions about the things Sony was doing, and that's a problem for a company that is in the lead in the way that Sony is. But outside of those sort of deviations from their plan, they are doing exactly what I expected them to do when I bought my PlayStation 4 and bought my Xbox One. And for me, that doesn't really put you at the top of the best gaming company list in 2016. Right. Let's see. I want to talk about Devolver Digital a little bit. They had a bunch of good games. I just think that they are kind of doing. I'm going to try to bring up a list of actually what they released this year. But they are like one of the growing smaller publishers in like the indie space where they are. I'm trying to get the actual games here. Where they are like they're not a AAA company. They are doing smaller things, and they're doing that purposefully. That's their mission. And we kind of lost that with companies like THQ falling out and other mid-sized companies, Midway, like years and years ago, Acclaim. Like these are companies that we don't even talk about anymore because they haven't been around for years. And I think finally now Devolver's starting to move up into that space. I don't necessarily know if that makes them competitive with a company like Blizzard or a company like Nintendo. But it's still, I'm glad that someone is kind of taking over, maybe not necessarily mid-tier games, but kind of going all out with indie games and like AAA or whatever the hell that is, for, like high-end independent games.
Sure. Why do you have Valve on this list?
I just feel like Valve probably should be on the list so we could be like, what is Valve doing? I just want to ask, Mike, what's Valve doing?
They're making Steam Wars. They did do a very big update to Dota 2 recently, which is not really my cup of tea. They put a lot of work into that. And then I don't know. I guess, what are they doing? This Steam Machines actually happened, right?
I wouldn't know if happen. I don't know if happen's the right word. I mean, they came out and they exist, but like happen implies that they had an impact, and I don't know if that's true.
They must have lost some money on that because that seemed like it was a big investment there. Or was the investment so safe because they had other people actually make them?
Yeah, they didn't. Like, I think that's exactly right. I think they're just like, we're going to make Steam OS because we have a million really intelligent developers here that could do that in their sleep. And they did. And they're like, okay, we'll turn it into a product and we'll let people make hardware that runs the Steam OS and see what happens. And It didn't happen. And the reason is because Windows 10 is a fine operating system. All of the craziness about whether or not Windows 10 would be fine for gamers and whether it's going to like completely shove out third-party companies from releasing their software in a world with Microsoft's Windows Store. It was kind of blown out of proportion. And I think most people are like, no, I'm just going to keep gaming on my Windows 10 machine because that's working out fine so far. So yeah. And then Steam VR, they're doing that. And like they're working with HTC, and they definitely have the most interesting VR strategy where, you can get the Vive, it's $800, it's expensive, or you can get the Oculus, it's $600, get the touch controllers $200, and then that makes it $800, but you can use that on Steam with Steam VR games, and I think they are setting themselves up as the sort of the App Store equivalent for VR experiences, and if they do that, they could pull it out and kind of actually be the VR company in a couple of years. But
we'll see.
For now, I just not enough people care about VR. I want to say I wrote my the top 10 most trafficked VR stories today for GamesBeat, and most of them were either porn or they were augmented reality Pokemon Go stories.
Right.
So it's that's what people care about when it comes to the stuff. They don't care about actually finding out if PlayStation VR has good games. I think, did we cover all of these companies on this list, Mike? I think we did.
Except for Bethesda, but...
Yeah, okay, that's right. Bethesda, I think Doom and Dishonored 2, as much as I don't personally like Dishonored 2, as much as a lot of people, I could see that it's a good game. It just didn't gel with me. I think they are still being very interesting in their release strategy, where they are kind of releasing sequels that are very good. They build on their their foundation, and then they're also releasing either upgrades or updates to franchises like Doom, or they're introducing entirely new things. They're going to have Prey next year. I think they're one of these interesting companies. But if I compare them side by side with Blizzard, I'd probably go with Blizzard still.
Yeah, I think that's what comes out to is I don't think anything tops Blizzard for me.
Yeah, so I think the ones we were highest on were Blizzard and Nintendo.
They're doing such a good job maintaining so many games with content and also releasing a major game in Overwatch. It's hard to top that year.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the game I feel the strongest about in terms of its future over 2017 and 2018 is Overwatch. And I think that has a lot to do with my confidence in Blizzard and what they've shown they can do this year and with all their other games. So yeah, it was a Blizzard kind of day on this podcast, Mike. Overwatch and Blizzard kind of went into our two topics today. I think that's going to wrap it up. Do you have any other thoughts on best gaming company of 2016?
Nah, it's Blizzard.
Yeah, I think
it's kind of all a big Blizzard love fest, I guess. But there it is.
Yep, that's how it works out sometimes. All right, yeah, so that's going to wrap it up. So I think we did best new gaming universe was Overwatch. The best gaming company was Blizzard. We're going to get out of here. We're going to have one more kind of Game of the Year podcast, I think, go up in this feed. And that should be the actual Game of the Year discussion. And then we'll have a most anticipated of 2017. So look out for those. Those are coming still this week. Thanks for listening. I want to say, everyone, again, you can get us on GamesBeat.com for more. You can email us, games plus podcast at VentureBeat.com. And Mike, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
You can find me at Tolkoto on Twitter, writing at GamesBeat all the time, and at EB Podcast on the Exploding Barrel Podcast. That's the other show I do with my brother AJ about video games and some other things, but mostly video games.
And I'm, here we go, Jeff Grubb, Poop Butt, Fart McFarty's P-Man CGI Face on Twitter. At least that's what it says in the show notes. What I remember is I'm just Jeff Grubb on Twitter, but apparently
strange.
Jeff Grubb Poop.
You've always been Jeff Grubb, that other stuff.
Yeah, Poop Butt, Fart McFarty's P-Man CGI Face, right. And I sometimes make videos on YouTube. You can get that at youtube.com/Jeffrey Grubb. We'll be back, like I said, and then we're going to have a regular show probably in the new year. I'm going to have a baby soon. I keep hinting at, that's going to happen. And eventually we'll have to figure out what happens with the podcast while I'm gone. But until then, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time. And, no cats.
That thing about the cats.